After watching this video, you should be able to distinguish the two major types of sex hormones and their effects. You should also be able to understand the difference between organizing and activating effects of hormones and be able to list a couple of different organizing effects that we're going to discuss. Steroid hormones are made from cholesterol. And so if you look here, we have the backbone of a cholesterol molecule, and then we have these different steroid hormones. So we have cortisol, testosterone, estradiol, and progesterone. And we'll talk about cortisol. We'll come back and talk about that in the stress and anxiety section. But you'll see they all have this same backbone. And so testosterone is a type of androgen, and estradiol is a type of estrogen. And then progesterone we'll come back and talk about later on as well. But I hope you notice the similarity between all of them. And so they're all made from cholesterol, and the testes are going to produce more androgens than estrogens. And so androgens are one type of sex hormone, and estrogens are another. Testosterone is a type of androgen, and estradiol is a type of estrogen. Now our ovaries produce more estrogens than androgens. And again, I've tried to color code them here a little bit. So how do these steroid hormones work? So they work in a couple of different ways. One thing that they do is they bind receptors. And so this is showing you this is a receptor, which is, remember, a protein embedded in the membrane, just like those neurotransmitter receptors were. And here's that hormone, and it's traveling through the blood, and then it goes in through the blood-brain barrier, and it finds a cell, a neuron, and it binds that receptor that's embedded in the membrane. The other thing they can do is go into the cell directly and activate proteins that are in the cytoplasm or inside the cell outside the nucleus. And the third way they can have an effect is, again, entering through the cell membrane directly, going into that nucleus, and activating genes directly. So they bind a receptor molecule, and then they go and they activate or inactivate certain genes. And activating or inactivating certain genes then increases or decreases protein expression. So these are kind of the three main ways that hormones have their effect. An example might be estrogen activating the gene for breast growth, or androgens activating the gene for growth of facial hair in men. And they also, we'll see, can alter certain brain areas, alter the patterns of neuronal survival, making some areas slightly larger in one gender than in another, altering hormonal patterns. So we will discuss a little bit of all those as we go on. So as we said a couple slides ago, the two main sex hormones are androgens and estrogens. Now, androgens are going to promote the development of typically masculine features, with testosterone being one type of androgen, and estrogen is going to promote the development of feminine features. And here I've color-coded them to maybe help you remember which is which. And we've already talked about those internal reproductive organs being organized during early prenatal development. And so another time where we see androgens and estrogens promoting the development of sexual features is our secondary sexual characteristics. When do we think those happen, or what are some examples of those? So yes, it happens during puberty or adolescence, and some examples might be facial hair in men, or breast development in women, widening of the hips in women, widening of the shoulders in men. All of these are some examples of those secondary sexual characteristics. And so how this might happen is that testosterone, or androgens, go into the cell and they activate a gene for the growth of facial hair in men. Alternatively, estrogen goes into the cells in a female, goes into that nucleus and activates genes that are involved for breast growth. We also know that androgens and estrogens can promote certain brain areas to alter in males and females. And so here, the ones that are in this kind of reddish pink are supposedly larger in females, and the ones that are blue are slightly larger in males. And I say supposedly because there is a lot of controversy over this idea that males and females have certain brain areas that are larger. There are some that we definitely agree upon as scientists, and others that are a little bit more discrepant. And more recent studies are starting to show it might be more differences in brain connectivity than sizes of brain area that we see as differences in men and women. So do all hormones account for all of the sex differences? So we've been talking about how androgens and estrogens can promote those secondary sexual characteristics. We'll talk a little bit more about how they can specifically alter brain regions. I'll give an example of one. And so those are all organizing effects. But now think back, we also talked about the organization of those internal reproductive organs. Was that just hormones, or what else was involved? Yeah, chromosomes. So hormones don't account for all sex differences. The genes on both X and Y chromosomes also produce sex differences. In particular, there are 3 genes on the Y chromosome and 1 on the X chromosome that are active in certain brain areas and not active in others, that promote some of the gender differences that we see.